Hey guys, Julian here, and today I'm making a minimal house track from start to finish. So if you want to hear the finished track, you can click the timestamp at the top of the description now. I'll give you a moment to do that. And yeah, so as usual, you can get the project file and samples from this video in the description, and if you're patient on my Patreon, check there. And as usual, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe and comment and let me know what you think of this video down below. Anyway, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this from 140 BPM to, let's do like 121. I like around like 120, 121, those kind of ranges. It's a little bit slower, so you get kind of that more chill vibe, but you still get like a nice kind of like it's fast enough to be house still. So let's delete these two return tracks. I'll delete this as well. And the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to get a kick. I've got this kick sample. It's like a pretty nice kind of like softer one you would use for this kind of stuff. I recommend kind of these softer kicks. Like you wouldn't obviously want like a huge, really hard hitting, clicky kind of kick, but just something almost like kind of 808 kicky like this that has a lot of nice deep low into it. So one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually check the tuning, because I want to make this track in, let's do this track in F. So you can see it's hitting at E right now. I'll just pitch that up one. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to put a drum bus on here and give it a bit more kind of punch. So now we can see, it's kind of all over the place, but it's hitting on F. I believe it's in tune. We'll hear it more when we get the bass in here. But yeah, you can also see like a good technique there is to use like any kind of saturation or distortion before the tuner, because that'll kind of help bring out the note if you're having a hard time finding out what key your kick is in. Alright, so that's pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to get a bass. So I want like a pretty simple kind of bass line. I want to do something with operator. Like some kind of FM synthesis. Maybe something kind of like this. Just like a simple little bass stab. You know, you don't want anything super crazy or anything that's going to get like too in the way of everything else. But the bass is more meant to just be kind of like deep and out of the way of everything else, and more kind of contributing to the groove. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Awesome, so that's sounding pretty good so far. We can also hear now, like I was saying, a little bit more if the kick is out of tune. And to me, it sounds pretty solid, honestly. We can maybe bring the bass up a little bit. I think I'm going to put a little bit of saturation on the bass as well. This is kind of similar to like how I use the drum bus there to just sort of beef the kick up. You can hear now, like, even though I'm turning the bass down to be the same level that it was before, we can definitely hear it a lot more and feel it a lot more. Like, it's really on an equal level with the kick now, I feel like. So that's sounding pretty good. And something I like to check on at this stage is usually just kind of like how hard the mix is hitting, which you can see this overall mix is hitting at about -6.3, so pretty good so far. I usually like to have it between like -5 and -6 while I'm working on the track. But alright, so the next thing I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to get a hi-hat, and I have this one here, which you can hear is kind of a big sample, which isn't really going to fit into this mix so much right now. So I'll put in some notes, and you can kind of see. I want this one to play on the upbeats. So you can hear, this is like not really that minimal sounding. Like, it's just very loud and in your face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the amplitude envelope. And there we go. It fits into this groove a lot more. So yeah, that's a really good technique. If you take kind of like a bigger hi-hat like this and just kind of shorten it, you can make it really fit into these tracks, and you have a lot of room to kind of play with it and make it your own, because we're basically just starting with this, which is too long, so no matter what, we're going to make it shorter. So if I just kind of like do like that, you can see we can make it a little bit longer, or a little shorter. So it really gives you a lot of room, and you can even automate it too. Like you can have it kind of like open it up over the course of the track. You know, there's a lot that can be done. But yeah, so it's a pretty good start here. Awesome. So the next thing that I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to get a clap. And you can see, like, we're really just trying to build up the rhythm section here. Like, the goal, because Minimal House is so, like, groove-oriented, is to really do that. Like, to just get your rhythm section going, and then, like, all the other stuff comes a lot easier. Like, I'm not worrying about, like, melodies or chords or anything like that right now. I'm just trying to get a really, really good groove. And alright, cool, so that sounds pretty good. And the key with the clap that I've noticed is just to kind of keep the volume down. Like, you don't want it to be too on top of the mix. Like, that's too much. But if we bring it down, we get like that kind of smaller, minimal clap kind of sound. So, I'm going to start doing a bit of arrangement at this stage, mostly just because I have an idea for it. What I want is, I want the first 16 bars to just be this stuff. And obviously more stuff once I add it. And then the clap will come in at this point. Alright, cool. That's sounding pretty good. Now, something that I think I want to do at this point is add some percussion. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get a drum rack. And we have all these different percussion sounds that I prepared, and I'm going to put them in the drum rack. And also, if you want any of these percussion sounds, I said it at the beginning of the video, or any sound from this, but the project file and the samples from this video and the MIDI and all that are available in the description right now, so you can check those out. But yeah, anyway, let's make a little loop here. So I'm going to make just like, let's do it over like 2 bars. That's pretty good. I'll make a little 2-bar loop here, and then we'll just take these sounds and start playing around with them. Gotta turn that down a little bit. Yeah, that's cool. Alright, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then we'll have something similar for the second half. Maybe we'll make it a bit different just to kind of give it some variation. Awesome, that's sounding pretty good. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that out a little bit. I'm not sure where that's going to come in the arrangement. I'm going to think about that when I get to more of the full arrangement. But yeah, that's a pretty good start. So then the next thing that I want to do here is kind of bring this to life, because you can hear this percussion really just sounds like a lot of samples right now. And something that I've noticed that a lot of minimal producers do really well, especially Ricardo Villalobos, is kind of like making the percussion sound more alive, like having it kind of somehow moving or changing or automating or something, so it really feels like it's moving and it's alive and it's not so just like flat. So what I'm going to do for this is I've got this auto filter and I'm going to use a bandpass. Let's do 12 dB. And what I'm going to do with this is you can hear it's got like a very sharp kind of filter, so it's very audible. I'm going to take this envelope here. And you can hear if we add that, it gives it some movement. And you can hear when we play that in the full track, it really feels a lot more alive. So that's a pretty good technique. I think I'm also going to put a small amount of echo on it. Like, let's just do regular eighth notes. Yeah, there we go. That really helps. Okay, nice. So again, we're still getting that groove that I initially programmed and that same kind of vibe from it. But now it's just so much more alive. And it's not just like doing one thing. And I also feel like this makes more room for everything else too. Like I can hear the bass line a lot more now than when I didn't have that filter. Now speaking of filters, I also have this EQ8 on the end just to kind of, you know, just kind of cut out the low end because you can see there's a little bit going on in there. Cool. So the next idea that I have, and this is also something I've noticed in a lot of Ricardo Villalobos tracks, is having like a second hi-hat come in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this part of the arrangement over, and what we're going to get is the second hi-hat sample I have. This one, which is kind of more like a 909 hi-hat. I'm going to shorten it a little. And what we can do is just kind of, let's drag it underneath that first one, is just grab the MIDI from the first one and just copy it onto there. And then when we put that in there, you'll hear when it goes from this part to the next part, it's kind of a cool way to add more energy because this hi-hat is so quiet, but you don't really notice anything too much about it since it's just coming in from the start. So yeah, it's kind of a nice change up when this one comes. Now, I also want to try some stuff while we're doing this. I like to kind of do the arrangement while I'm working, especially with this kind of stuff. Let's have the bass line not come in right at the start. And let's maybe have, like, this stuff come in 8 bars in. Yeah, there we go. So we'll have the bass and the clap kind of come in at the same time. So it kind of gives it, like, a very minimal intro, just starting with the kick and the hi-hat. But I feel like that's pretty solid. It definitely works for DJs. And then we got some percussion coming in there. And then this is kind of when most of the groove comes in. Cool, so the next thing I think I'm going to do is I want to try and add some kind of like a chord thing. So some kind of like maybe a stab or something. So let's get operator. I want to try making something with some FM. And let's maybe program in some MIDI. I have an idea. Now this is in F, so that's what the bass line is in. So we're just going to make F minor chords. That's kind of... We don't really want like a major vibe with this. Yeah, there we go. Again, it's just something subtle that will kind of come in and, you know, give it kind of something other than just the rhythm section. Like this is, I guess you could kind of classify this as a percussion, but it's really more like just kind of like extra ear candy kind of stuff. So let's mess with the envelope on this first oscillator a little. Nice, and this is where I'm going to start making this kind of more unique. I'm going to start bringing in some of these other oscillators. And we can get some FM going and get kind of like... Maybe the sound I'm going for is kind of like Rhodesy, like E-piano kind of sound. Yeah, that sounds cool. It's not quite that like E-piano kind of sound, but it's actually something a little bit cooler. I like this kind of more than what I was going for originally. Cool, so the next thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put some effects on it. We're going to first get an echo because we want that really like dubby kind of sound. As a matter of fact, let's not use the echo right away. The first thing I'm going to get here is just a ping pong delay. And with the ping pong delay, we're going to do 16th notes. There you go, those. Actually, let's get a simple delay. Alright, 3 delays in here. Let's get the simple delay, and we'll do 16 notes with that. I want it to be mono. That's why I chose this over the ping pong delay. But yeah, we'll link those so it's mono, and then turn the feedback up a bit. It's on 16 notes. Yeah, there we go. And then, on top of that, let's get an echo. And I want to try something here. I want to have one ear, maybe we'll do the left ear, doing dotted eighth notes, and then one ear is going to be doing just regular quarter notes. And let's hear what that sounds like. Yeah, that sounds kind of cool. Maybe we could... Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Okay, cool. Maybe a little bit of reverb. And let me try... Okay, so now we just have this echo doing regular eighth notes, but you can still hear it's kind of a nice thing when we combine the 16th note delay with this one. Because you can hear it's kind of like bringing out the first one a little bit more. Awesome. And what we're going to do is we're going to have this kind of building up. And then we're going to have like a break here where there'll be no kick. So let's get maybe like this hi-hat and the percussion and the bass. Okay, playing around with the chord there a little bit, but yeah. So what we'll do is we'll have this kind of like coming up. So I'm going to use this filter here, and we're going to... Yeah, we're going to do like that. And then I'm going to have it start opening up from there. So then it'll be kind of building throughout here. And you can hear that filter's opening. And it's getting more and more intense. And this is important. The thing with minimal house, like I get a lot of questions about how to structure this style of music. And really, like, I can't recommend to you just kind of knowing how to slowly build tension enough. Like, that's really what it is. It's just kind of knowing how to, like, build it up in a way where, like, you're not just giving everything away at once, but it's still building. Like, the thing is, okay, say you have, like, the most obvious kind of build, like an EDM track where you just have, like, a big snare build, like a and, like, a like, all that kind of stuff. You already, like, you're kind of already giving it away when you hear that, because as soon as you hear the big snare build and the big, like, riser, you know on the other side of that, there's a huge drop. With this kind of stuff, you want to be more kind of, like, mysterious and more kind of, like, you know, unsure. Like, not even, like, unsure, but just sort of, like, you don't really know so much what's going to happen next. It's not so obvious where it's building to, but when it comes, then it's very nice. So that's kind of what we're going for here. And the way to do this is just kind of, you know, make it like a slow burner. Like, just have everything kind of really slowly building up. So that's what we're going to do. We'll maybe have this filter. We got filter sweeps on top of filter sweeps. Because we got this one opening where it's kind of like opening up this actual sound and making it bigger. And then we have this one opening where it's just kind of bringing it in. Like, you can hear. It's just really slowly coming in here. But that's good. Now that... Yeah, so now that I have this kind of more together, I'm going to work on the sound a little bit more because I'm still not crazy about this. Maybe something more like that. And then toward the end of this build here, or this little break. Yeah, there we go. I like to do little stuff like that. Like, again, you wouldn't want to have like a huge build up during this part, but I like to do little things like this where you kind of have like that hi-hat and drum rack cut out there. Alright, cool. So, from there, I think actually I kind of want to add some more like percussion stuff before we move forward with the arrangement. Because when I'm hearing this, I feel like more can be done. So what I want to do here is I'm going to get an operator and we're going to make some kind of weird percussion. So I'm going to take some white noise. We'll turn down the sustain a bunch. We'll also turn that down. Let's turn down the decay. That sounds good. And from there what we can do is we can get a bandpass filter. It's very similarly to how, or it's very similar technique to how I always say to make hi-hats. But anyway, what we can do is we can take this bandpass, turn the frequency down, and put an envelope on it. And now you can hear we're getting like this kind of clicky sound. And so what we can do is shorten that decay a bit more. And there you go, you get like a kind of nice like click sort of percussion thing. Now what we can do with this is fine tune it a little bit. Alright, there we go. And then we can put this into the beat. So let's do like 2 bars of that. We'll just do the thing there. The cool thing about this is that you can put it at literally any pitch. And it doesn't matter. So I can have these just be wherever I want them to be. Yeah, there we go. That sounds cool. Okay, so it's in the background, but you can hear it's adding a lot of dimension. Because we kind of have like, you know, we have kind of different layers of percussion. Like we have like, I guess what you would call the main stuff. And then we have this, which is more obviously kind of like some different percussion sounds. And then we have the clicks coming in, which are kind of like on another layer. So yeah, it just kind of adds a lot of depth to it. That's the thing I've really picked up on from listening to this kind of stuff. It's like, it's just about having a lot of like layers, and not even so much layers, but like dimensions to it. Again, we have like the main stuff, we've got this obvious percussion drum group, and then we just got this nice kind of click in the background, and you can hear this is a very minimal track, but it's also very full in a lot of ways. Cool, so from here what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to do some more kind of percussion stuff. I have this one idea, which is to basically take this drum rack, this one, and we're going to get rid of these effects here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and we're going to get another track underneath it, and we're going to put operator on that. And the reason for this is because we are going to actually use a vocoder. So I'm going to get a vocoder and put it on the drum group, or on the drum rack, I guess. And we're going to set the carrier to external. We'll change the input to 10 operator. And then on this 10 operator here, we're just going to make, it doesn't really matter how long it is. I'm just going to make it a bar. We're going to make an F minor chord. Just like that. We'll put the legato on there. And then we're just going to change this to a saw wave. And from there, I'm going to turn off our operator there, track 10. And we'll just drag that out. And then on this 9 drum rack here, what we're going to do is we can now listen. And you can hear we have this really cool kind of like dubby percussion, which you can hear adds a pretty cool element to this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and I want this same groove because it fits really well with the rest of the track. What we're going to do is we're going to invert it so it's different sounds, because the different sounds that you use on here are going to make a big difference with how the overall thing sounds, as you can hear. So you can turn this up a little bit, maybe like, or play around with this. Maybe turn the formant up and down. We can have that automating throughout the track as well. But from there, I'm gonna get an auto filter, and we're gonna use a bandpass. And then with this one, we're just going to use an LFO instead of an envelope like I did on the other one. And you can hear. You can hear we have this really cool kind of like more live percussion. Again, it's just like I was saying before, like just doing things to make your percussion not so just like flat and like dry sounding. Alright, that sounds pretty good. So from there, I think we just need some delay. I'm just going to do one delay with this. Let's get an echo. Really like using echo. And let's just do eighth notes. And there we go. Sounds pretty good. I'll also put an EQ8 on there to like cut out some low end. Because I imagine there's probably some in there. But as you can see, with those two things that we just added, this drum rack with the percussion and the click, here's without them. It works, but it's kind of flat. And then here's with them. So yeah, that definitely helps a lot. So I'm going to start doing some arrangement with these as well, because I think that's kind of the next thing is to just kind of arrange all of this. So let's take this click. Let's hear what it sounds like in the intro. Nah, that's not really what I want, but we can bring it in here maybe. Actually, let's bring it in here, because this way what'll happen is you'll hear this, and then you'll hear this. And then when this part comes, the clicks will come. And that will kind of let you know, like, it kind of signifies to the listener that they're not, like, a part of everything else. Like, it kind of helps to split the layers apart. Because what's happening is, you're hearing this, that drum rack there, and you know that that is one thing. And then when the click comes in, you kind of know that they're not, like, the same thing, if that makes any sense. So again, it helps to just kind of, like, split it apart in your ears. Cool, so then what I'm going to do is we'll copy this stuff over. And I'm going to have this thing building throughout here. Like, we'll maybe make this one this long. I like to have it be like a really long build-up, just like I did with that little chord sample, that little chord stab that I made. But it's just like kind of making it a slow burner, you know, not making it just like... Yeah, there we go. Like, making sure you can still hear it coming in. It's just coming in very subtly. Cool, so let's hear this a little bit, and I'll see where we need to go next with the arrangement. Maybe we'll cut out the kick there. And I'll copy the clicks over to this part. And now I kind of want to try having this thing filtering down. You know what I mean? Like it'll kind of go out of here and then go into this little breakdown. Oh, we gotta delete that little click there. But yeah, you know, it'll kind of like break down, and then it'll go down to this again. And then we'll go back into like another quote-unquote drop. So let's grab this stuff, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn off the automation, or turn on the automation lock. And what the automation lock is basically, I've talked about this a bit before, but basically it makes it so when you copy something, it won't copy the automation, it'll only copy the clip. So if I turn it off, and let's say I copy this drum rack, you can see there's some automation there. If we paste it over here, there we go. We're also pasting the automation, which isn't what I want because, yeah, I'm trying to have this kind of sound like how it did a second ago, not how it did in this part when there was automation. So now that we've turned on the automation lock, if I copy this and we paste it, there we go. The automation is just as it was a moment ago. So yeah, that can be useful when you're trying to grab like a part of the track and just have it kind of like over here. So let's hear this. I'll have that chord kind of filter back up. We can copy this over. Cool, so this is sounding pretty good. So I want to do like another part to this, and I have an idea actually of what I want to do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy everything over. However, we're going to delete, yeah, that is the chord step. Just wanted to make sure. We're going to delete the chord step in this part. That's because I want to add one more new thing to this track. So what I'm going to add here is this. So I've got this vinyl noise sample. Here, I'll play it for you. You can hear there's that, and vinyl noise is definitely a pretty important part of these kind of tracks. It's a nice way to kind of add some texture to it, because if you listen to this, especially like in these parts where it's more sparse, I mean, truth be told, it is still like minimal house, and so if you make it too minimal, like the key here is to make it minimal but still sound like well produced, you know, like obviously minimal house, by the definition of the word minimal, could be literally just like a kick and a hi-hat, like technically, this is minimal house. It's a house beat that is very minimal. But the key here is not to make minimal house, but it's to make house music that is very minimal, but still works like really well and still has like everything it needs, if that makes any sense. So the vinyl noise is going to help with that. And we're going to do two things with this. For one, I'm going to bring it in here, and we're just going to use this as like some regular vinyl noise throughout the background. Which, if I filter it right, I'll kind of stretch that out a little bit as well. But yeah, you can hear when we bring that in kind of quietly in the background. Sounds pretty solid. I'm going to make that loop a bit shorter. Well, that sounds pretty good. But then the other thing that I want to do, that is kind of like serving the purpose of what I was saying, like adding something more organic to make it less like minimal and more just kind of like simple, if that makes any sense. But yeah, like what this does, it just kind of helps add more texture. And again, by doing that, we're making it less minimal and more kind of like, I mean, I guess the best way I can put it is just more interesting, you know? Cool, so and then the next thing that I'm going to do is maybe in the break here, I'm going to get the vinyl noise on a new track, and I'm going to put this underneath the other chord. And what we're going to do with this is we are going to put a resonator on there. So I'm going to get Ableton's Resonator, this thing, and you can hear, right now it doesn't really sound like too much. So what we're going to do is we are going to turn the dry wet up to 100%, and we're going to change the note to F, since we're in F minor. There we go. And then we can start playing with these. So I'm going to make an F minor chord. We're going to put 1 up plus 3 and 1 up plus 7. And you can hear we've got a pretty nice little kind of like sound here. Now the key here is to just sort of work with it. And just sort of get what you want from it. Because you can hear, like, without this filter, it's very full body. Now, there are kind of a few things we can do here. Like, for one, I think if I put this up an octave, it'll help. And we can also filter it. But you can hear what's cool about this is, basically, it's taking this input and all these little peaks that we get from this little vinyl noise, like, this and just all these different things, and it's just kind of giving us like this cool sort of more like random chord sound, where it's giving us those chords, but it's happening like with this as opposed to just kind of like being something that we program. So it kind of gives it a more like human feel. And so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna have this come in here. Like we're gonna filter it up, and then we'll have it filter back down. Yeah, like something like that. And then we're going to copy that over to here. So this is why I was saying to make the new part, is because we want to have it in this part. So then when it comes in this part, we'll listen to it. But first, let's hear how it sounds in the break. And I'll add some effects to it while this is going as well. Okay, sounds pretty solid. So yeah, it's kind of like a nice thing, like, it just comes in through here. And you know, honestly, truth be told, this is just a cool way to make something that's kind of like a pad, you know? It's like, maybe in like a more regular house track, you would have like a pad here or an ARP or something, but having something like this, it gives it that cool kind of textured, minimal sound. And people like Ricardo Villalobos use a lot. Because that's kind of like the thing with minimal house. I feel like in a lot of ways, like, again, the attraction to it isn't just that it's minimal. It's like also because, you know, it's got more texture to it. It's kind of got more like of a human feel. It's a little bit more free. And yeah, so this is how you do stuff like that, is by kind of like sort of having weirder kind of synth sounds like this. So I'm having it filter up during this part. And then we'll have this come in here when that chord stops. Alright, that sounds cool. Now, we can maybe try sidechaining into the kick. I'm not entirely sure. With this style, I don't use too much sidechaining usually, because again, it's supposed to sound very free. But this thing, because it's so, like, big, might benefit from it, as you can hear. But this is sounding pretty good. So from here we can go and do like a bit of mixing, like we can listen. And this goes back to what I was saying at the start too. You can see by setting up the kick and the bass, where I, like how I did, where I kind of just took my time, got those two things right, and kind of built everything on top of them. You can see, even now at the end of the mix, we're still just hitting at like -5. Or -5.3, but it's still between -5 and -6. But yeah, so I'm going to take this and I'll start with the kick and the bass. And just make sure everything is how I want it. And then we'll kind of move up in the frequency spectrum. Like I'll listen to the little chord step. I keep calling it a chord sample. Cool, and then we can maybe bring this in. This is where I'm going to listen and see like if I want to cut the low end. Kind of stuff like that. We'll also see that with the chord step. Yeah, so you can see like this is where I'm going and just kind of like cleaning it up. And then we can listen to all the percussion. I don't think these have too much of an issue. Yeah, because I already cut them. We can maybe like cut out the clap a little bit, or cut out the low end from the clap a little bit. We can check on this too. Sometimes these kind of things can have a bit of it. Cool, and I'm also gonna maybe do a bit of like kind of group processing as well on these. Like, let's get all of these drums together in one thing. I like to kind of have the drums, I guess you would say like the percussion. Let's put these in their own bus. But I like to have the kind of percussion in a separate bus from like the kick. I like to kind of have the kick and the bass together, which I'll show you in a moment. But yeah, so on this we can add maybe a bit of saturation. It's always good to add some texture. Turn the bass frequency up a little. Yeah, that's good. Again, I'm not trying to bring the clap out too much. Just like I was saying in the beginning, you want the clap to be a little bit more behind. But that's cool. We can also bus like these things together. And add a bit of saturation there. Maybe cut out some low end. Just trying to really finalize the mix at this point. Cool, and then the last thing that I'll do here is I'll just get the kick and the bass together, and we're going to put some processing on those as well. And it's pretty important to do that because, like, you really want the kick and the bass to feel, like, together, you know? Like, that's really the foundation of this kind of house music. Is, like, how well the kick and the bass are working. Because, again, I was saying, like, those are really, like, the main, I mean, no pun intended, but, like, bass elements that really, they really sort of, like, set the groove for these kind of tracks. So you want to have them kind of sounding, you know, really good together sonically. And in your mix. Which I think we're doing a pretty good job of here. And you can see, like, another thing is this, I'm mixing these and I'm trying to beef them up and make them sound more, like, full. But I'm not going for, like, a huge sound. Like, I'm not trying to mix this like a tool house, or like a tech house track, tool house. Like a tech house track, or, like, even, like, an EDM track or something like that. Where, like, with those kind of tracks, like, you're really trying to, like, beef up your kicks and your percussion and all this kind of stuff and really make it hit hard. And here we're trying to make it hit hard, but in the context of this. So I'm not going and trying to make the kick, like, super huge. I'm just doing as much as I can to make it all work, you know, the best as it can with how it is. And you can hear, like, when we listen to the full mix, that's basically what's going on. Is it's not, like, it's not that it's hitting so hard, it's just hitting, and it's very powerful for, like, a nice minimal track, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, I can kind of show you what I did on this bass and kick group here. Here's without this processing. And then with it. So you can hear it really helps. So the first thing we've got is just some saturation. Just kind of beefs these up. Helps to put a kind of like the same, like, overlay of saturation on these so they both have kind of a similar texture. And then I've just got those going through this compressor, which you can see is really just compressing the peaks. I don't want to go too crazy because I'm going to do more of this in mastering, and you really don't need a whole lot. But yeah, then it's also got a bit of attack on there. I've got the attack turned up a little bit, so it's not crushing it, like, too much. Like, it's not going to mess up the transients. So yeah, so this is sounding pretty good, honestly, at this point. I think the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to finalize the track. And to do this, I'm going to do some mastering. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to, like, the loudest part of the track. Let's just say, like, this. So let's do here. And what we're going to do is, first, we are going to get an EQ8. So I'm going to put this EQ8 on the master. This is something I do in a lot of these kind of videos. And basically, we're just going to turn up the low end a bit. And we're going to turn up the high end a little bit. And then we're going to make a cut at, let's do it perfectly between 200 and 300. Let's do 250 hertz. And so what this just does is it boosts the low end. Let's actually do a bit less of a low end boost and a bit less of a high end boost. But just basically boosts the low end a little bit, so it kind of gives us more power there. Boosts the high end a little bit, so it helps to really bring up those, like, sharp highs that give clarity to the mix. And then it just kind of cuts out where a lot of those, like, boxy frequencies are, like between, like, 200 to 300 hertz. So let's hear what this sounds like. So here's without it. And then with it. I'm going to turn down my bass a little bit, maybe. And you can see the mix is hitting at about -4 at this point, so we can maybe turn it down a little bit. Nice. Okay, so you can hear that really helps. Like, already, it's just a lot fatter. A lot cleaner sounding. And yeah, definitely a good technique. So the next thing that I think I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of saturation. And I usually do this in these videos where I'm making like a track from scratch, I like putting saturation on my master at the end. I find like when you do it versus when you don't, it really sounds a lot more like together. And we're not doing too much, we're just turning the drive up a little bit. A little bit more bass frequency as well. We'll turn the output down so it's not too crazy. Let's see where that's hitting. We just want it at about -5 or -6 like I was saying earlier. Yeah, like that is good. But you can hear this really helps to tie everything together. It's kind of like I was saying with the kick and bass group. Is like when you do stuff like this, when you're putting this effect over top of everything. So just by putting even a very small amount of this effect over top of everything, it really helps to make everything sound together. And this is one of those things that's kind of like when you say like mastering really helps to finalize your track. This is one of the things you're trying to do. Is just help to really put it in or bring everything in as close as you possibly can. So here's without the saturation. And then with it. So yeah, it really helps. Now, okay, cool. So the next thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to get a bit of glue compression. So I like using glue compressor on my master because it's a nice way to get like kind of some compression. It's pretty transparent, but it does help to like glue everything together. Like as much of a pattern as that is. I'm just going to turn the threshold down. We don't want a whole lot. You can see when the blue thing starts kicking, that's basically when it's coming in. And you're like, that's a bit too much. What if we just do like that much? Turn the attack up a little bit. You can hear it really helps. Like, it's just sort of gluing everything together, compressing those peaks a little bit. Maybe we'll do a little bit less. This threshold is a little bit odd because you're turning it up to do less. But yeah, you can hear it just really helps to glue everything together. Here's without it. And then with it. Like I said, it's very transparent. Like, you're not really getting such a strong compression with this one. As much as you're just kind of flattening out the peaks ever so slightly. And just really helping to kind of like bring everything closer dynamic wise. Again, here's without it. And then with it. I also turned the soft clip on. I don't think it's really doing too much, but I do like to have that just in case. But yeah, that sounds pretty good. So from there, I'm gonna turn that makeup gain a little bit just to put it back where it was. But from here, I'm going to do the final step, which is to put a limiter on here. And so, the reason why I'm putting a limiter on here is because, as you can see, we're still hitting, maybe I can turn this up a little bit more. We're still hitting at about, like, -4. And -4 isn't really a professional volume. Like, to get your track to professional level, you need to have it hitting at 0. So that's what the limiter is going to do. We're going to use this, and we're just going to turn the gain up +4. And what this is going to do is, it's going to do a simple gain boost. But now we're at 0. And you can see it's not going over 0. So like, let's say I get like a utility and do like a very similar thing. Like, let's turn this up a bit more with the utility. You can hear it sometimes it's going over. And so this is why you wouldn't want to just use the utility and do this, and why you would want to use the limiters, because the limiter is going to allow you to turn it up. The gain on this is no different from a utility, but then when it does get over, even ever so slightly, it's going to make sure that everything is just staying in the green and it's not clipping. So, again, you don't want to use the limiter on your master to keep it from clipping, like when you're just making the track. But when you're at this point and you're turning it up to hit 0 dB, it's a good way to do that and make sure that it's not going to go over. And again, the difference between doing this when you're at the start of a track and you're just trying to keep everything from clipping, and when you're at the end of the track and you're trying to give it a nice gain boost that will prevent it from clipping, is that basically when you're doing this just at the start, you're not really doing any kind of nuanced thing with the levels. Like, you can see the levels of all these different tracks here are completely different. It's because I've been going through this whole time and turning it down to make sure that it's not hitting over 0 dB. So when you put a limiter on at the start and you just don't think about your levels, you're kind of like not doing that, and it's gonna make your track just not sound that good because you're not really doing that much mixing as you're going. But when you add the limiter at the end like this, you are just using it in a very like kind of controlled way where it's not gonna be so messy and so out of control as if you just had a limiter on a very clipping track. But you're using the limiter again in a very nuanced and kind of controlled way. So that's pretty much it. I'll just show you kind of like the difference. Here's with no mastering stuff, and then I'll just kind of start turning it all on. So here's completely dry. So it's still a good track, but it's not got like that kind of final polish to it. And then I'll just turn these on one by one and you can hear. So yeah, there we go. That is pretty much it. It really is not too difficult to do the mastering, but you can see it's just a matter of going through and really tackling everything with that same kind of nuance and finesse. So at this point in the video, I think I'm going to play the full track from start to finish so you can hear it. Here it is. Alright, so that is it. That's what we created. So it sounds pretty cool. Like I said, we just went all the way from start to finish, making a minimal house track from the most basic idea to a finished and pretty full track. So that is me for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you thought of this video in the comments. Let me know which one of these tracks from start to finish you want to see, or what style you want to see me do next week. And as usual, you get the project file and the samples and yeah, everything from this song in the description, so make sure to check that out. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it will be available shortly. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.